And my name is Clinton Belcher, and I'll be facilitating the webinar and moderating. And I am from Canadian Ecotourism Services, and we are the company that is working with Aboriginal Tourism Ontario and helping get some of the things going for this 2015 year. And one of the reasons we're doing that is to get more of the communities and businesses involved to kick things off. And certainly at the end of this, there's information if you'd like more on Aboriginal Tourism Ontario. So our webinar today is the Aboriginal Tourism Ontario Human Resources Development and Training Opportunities. And just before we start, just a little bit of housekeeping for us. We are going to, if you're using your computer to listen to, and I think there's a couple of people that might be, you'll notice there's a little, at the top arrow, you will see a little green icon with a mic. If you just tap on that, that will mute you so that we don't hear you. And then if you wish to talk, you just tap it again and it will unmute you. And you also have a selection, the second arrow, you can use your telephone. If things become unclear or if your computer bonks out, just touch on the telephone and you can dial into the number. And also, you will see at the last little box there is the little type in. Please feel free to type in your questions as we're going along, or just so you can remember, and we can reference them as we go through. And if not, we will make sure that we reference them at the end of the webinar. So that's there just for some housekeeping. And you also will notice a 1-800 number. That's 1-877-444-5550. Should you have any problems throughout this, just call that number, and Margaret will help you through and get you back on. And today's kind of an informal setting because we have. It's good to see that we have. We've had about 14 people register, and we've got a small group now that is actually online. So we can use that opportunity to answer some of the questions that you have, and really hear what some of your needs are, and that tailor this to what your solutions are at the end. For our agenda today, really, we're going to be doing, we're just going to expose some of the challenges. We have a guest speaker here who's going to help us with that, and that's Adam Morrison. Adam Morrison is the OTEC's Director of Project Development. He leads the organization's workforce development initiatives by working with industry, government, and education to integrate systems and standards that enhance customer service and tourism workforce competitiveness at the community level. Adam's been really committed to developing the projects that include improved collaboration, and has led to his leadership of organizational research, capacity building, and sector-level strategies projects at OTEC. I think some of you have dealings with Adam and OTEC. They've done a wonderful job in helping build capacity with the Aboriginal tourism. Some of the projects that Adam's worked on include the Ontario Tourism Workforce Development Strategy, a great work there from 2012 to 2017, and a 3-year upskill essentials to Excel hotel training ROI study, which is, I believe, one of the first ones ever done, which is excellent. So Adam's going to give us a little bit of a talk and share with him, he's going to share with us some of the solutions that we may have. And going through right now, I have Adam here. Adam, do you want to say good morning to everyone?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I recognize some names on the list of attendees. Looking forward to walking through some of the projects that we've been involved with in the network. And you know, as we go, looking forward to getting any of your thoughts on how some of those concepts can be leveraged as we start to move forward.
So Adam, just some of the common challenges that we see in the industry, and these have been the same, for 20 years that I've been in it. It's the same thing: recruitment, and building that right team. And we find that even finding the right people sometimes is a challenge.
You're absolutely right. We often hear that it's the same old problems and the same old, and we struggle again and again to solve them. But at the same time, we've seen a lot of change over the past 5 to 10 years as different networks start to collaborate and also start to share systems and best practices. practices. I think there's a reason for optimism that we're going to start to break through some of those trends and start to create some winning strategies.
And one of the things that comes up over and over, I know from people that I meet in the communities, what are the training programs out there? And there's always sort of a challenge, like, well, how do we get these people involved in these training programs, and how do they take advantage of it?
No, it's very true. A little bit later, we'll talk about some of the systems that are in place. But I mean, Canada as a country, we are extremely fortunate. We're known as leaders in especially tourism and hospitality, where standards, professional development, networks and resources are concerned. The question is, how do we build the networks around those resources so that they're sharing them and using them and turning them into business success?
Right. And, certainly with one of those opportunities living in Canada, we have 4 seasons. And often we hear that one of the challenges is, well, how do I keep a workforce all year round and with seasonal workforce, and how do we keep those, retention or keep them as well as keep them busy all year and having revenue that way?
There's lots of interesting case studies on that point, from anything as simple as a golf course partnering with their neighboring ski resort to share staff, to some of the more ambitious partnerships where community programs in Ontario are partnering with resorts in Western Canada so that they can contribute to labor mobility among their community members.
Okay. And what is labor mobility? The definition of labor mobility.
Well, I think it's kind of a dynamic concept. I mean, from our perspective as a human resource organization, a training and consulting organization, we look at trying to develop a shared understanding of what people's skills are, so that we can work with other partners across the country and even more recently in other countries from a common benchmark. And we understand which candidates are going to be eligible for which opportunities and vice versa. So people are free then to transfer their skills into new markets.
Right. And one of the other challenges that, common challenges we find is from the management perspective. Just have to, if you're on and joining us, thanks so much. Welcome. If we've got a couple of people that just joined us a little bit late, that's no problem. Just make sure that you're muted so we can't hear your background. Thank you so much. Adam, one of the other things that is a common challenge is finding management, whether that's someone that's an owner-operator or that's someone that may be an economic development officer trying to get people, manage the system and get people involved. Are there systems and process in place to help those kinds of people when they're so busy with so much on their portfolio?
And this remains a challenge, the area of management and leadership development in the sector. It was identified as a gap and a priority way back when we developed the Ontario Tourism Workforce Development Strategy, and it remains one today. We do see growing numbers of businesses taking advantage of frontline training opportunities, particularly utilizing the job grant that I'll touch on later on in this webinar. But leadership and management and operations training opportunities are available, but are definitely underutilized across the sector.
Okay, and just before we move on, I have one fun question. So Adam, is it true that people really, to retain your staff, is it true that it's all about the money? Is it paying them the right dollar? Is that what it comes down to in the bottom line? Or are there other things that you can do to retain your staff that keep them happy?
I think the statistics, and one of the latest studies that I have looked at said that the number one reason that an individual would list as why they left their last job was their manager. And so, people have to make a living. I'm sure that plays into people's decisions, but it is incredible how important that leadership is in any business.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, and if those of you who've just joined us, if you'd like, there's a little chat area. If you'd like to ask questions as we go along, if something comes up, please feel free to do so. And we are going to move right along. So we're going to go to the next one. So one of the ways that we can, of course, deal with these challenges is by working together with partners. And Aboriginal Tourism Ontario looks at OTEC as a wonderful partner that can help them with the human resource and development and capacity building. And so I'm going to turn it over to Adam at this time, and I think Adam's going to touch on a lot of this. And just Adam had said to me before we started, he said, you know, he wants to give you a broad-based perspective because it's all encompassing. Certainly at the end of this, if there's areas that you'd like to touch on or as we go through, just say something and we'll work with you.
So hello everyone, we've made introductions. So I'd like to take you through a few points together. And to start out, I'll give any that aren't familiar with our organization, OTEC, a brief intro to who we are and what we do. I want to look at just some of the existing infrastructure in Ontario for workforce development and tourism. And then I want to break down some of the opportunities. They each have a very important role, and it'll give us some topics for further discussion towards the end of the webinar. And finally, I just want to touch on some key principles that are important to us in the work we do in tourism and community development, and because it's almost guiding principles in how we set about to design new projects and to work with new partners. So, OTEC was formed in the early 90s by a coalition of industry, education, the Ministry of Tourism under another name at the time. And we were pulled together to really be the liaison between all of those bodies where tourism standards, attraction, retention, and workforce development were concerned. We're an independent, nonprofit training and consulting organization. We worked with approximately 2,000 businesses. We've worked with over 300 educational institutions from high school up to college and even university level. We've trained over 175,000 individuals. And it was around the same time that we were formed in Ontario that we then took on the role of Ontario's representative on the National Tourism Sector Council organization, the Canadian Tourism Human Resource Council. So as such, we took on the role of administering the National Occupational Standards, the eMerit portfolio, as well as the attraction and retention campaign, Discover Tourism, and a number of other initiatives in the province. So just to give you a brief rundown of some of the resources that we do have at our disposal in Canada and in Ontario, one of the biggest toolkits that we work with is the eMerit National Occupational Standards and Certifications portfolio. There are over 46 tourism and hospitality occupations that have national occupational standards developed for them. So businesses use these. They can download them from the internet, use them to inform in-house policies. The college sector uses them to ensure their curriculum is up to date. And among the most high demand of those occupations, we also have certification pathways.
So Adam, are those tools and resources downloadable? Are those for free?
There's a nominal charge for National Occupational Standards. I believe it's $10 through the eMerit website, but it's a resource that's continuously being updated. So our team works with businesses from across the country and our counterparts in each province to maintain that database of standards.
And certainly when you're developing a company manual or job descriptions or whatever, it's so easy. It'll save your time by like weeks.
Absolutely. Even the largest corporate hotel brands have used these standards when they were at the point where they grew and needed to develop their own in-house processes.
And they're wonderful because they're customizable as well.
Absolutely. Okay. So this toolkit of national standards and certifications, it gives us a common currency that we use to work with the educational sector. So currently, we're working with 263 high schools from 58 Ontario school boards, and they're using both our service excellence customer service standards and programming. And many of the colleges are also using these occupational standards. There's a lot of sub-programs that target employment-based training for the sector, but it's one of our key networks, and it's when we talk later about collaboration, There's a lot of opportunities for articulation and credit recognition for community programs and specifically tourism business initiatives and this network.
So just to put that into perspective, that means if I'm an owner-operator or have a small tourism business, I could actually access training while I'm running my business with employees. Is that right?
Absolutely, but moreover, working with that network, what we've been working to develop are partnerships so that individuals who are trained in the workplace, should they ever choose to go back to school, will get credit recognition for pursuing these national certifications while on the job.
Awesome.
So flexible professional development, career development pathways. Another key network that exists and utilizes the standards available in Canada is the Community Pre-Employment and Skills Network. So here in Ontario, we work with over 100 different organizations in the First Nations and Métis networks. These are your asset holders, and across the rest of the province, we're working with Ontario Works, with Employment Ontario, and so on. And this is a great network when it comes to community training, because they're often in locations where colleges won't have campuses and other private training providers aren't operating. So we can build a lot of capacity here and form partnerships with this network to make training available to businesses in more remote areas.
And pre-employment really is, that's just meaning them getting your people ready before they actually start? What does pre-employment mean?
Pre-employment is working with the network or the labor pool that hasn't yet gained the skills, per se, to work in the field. So it's almost like growing your talent before they work, at your operation. It's an important investment. And here in urban centers, we work with some of the largest hospitality brands because they understand the value of that investment and what it means to them down the road. So let's look at pre-employment to start with. Why is it so important? Again, we've got labor market projections that show we're going to have severe shortages in the coming years. This is no surprise. We're not the only sector facing these shortages, but particularly with Aboriginal tourism development, a lot of the communities where we have attractions, we have important cultural assets, they can be more remote. They can potentially not be near an urban center. And this is where we find the most acute labor shortages. And this is where we're hearing a real demand for labor market development and workforce development. So as we talk through some of these options and these models, that's where I'm going to start. I can share some really interesting examples of where partners have developed programming. So defining the opportunities overall, we'll start with pre-employment programming that you might find in your community and as an opportunity for partnership. But then we'll look at more traditional workplace and employee training. And there's been a lot of new developments in that category as well. And finally, I want to go to a new space that is opening up for us, especially with the launch of Aboriginal Tourism Ontario, and that is regional ambassador training and brand building. So first off, we have a large and diverse network of partners that are involved in community pre-employment and skills training. These are, I guess the principle is here that we're trying to create a training bridge for individuals who might not yet have the employment skills to take jobs with businesses that need to find employees. It's a really simple concept, but these programs, they start with the client. And as a result, they're completely tailored. Each one is unique. We start from the client, we build the programming to fill specific gaps and meet employers' needs. And so you'll find some really, really interesting innovations from across the network. One of the first ones that I'd like to walk through is actually a fairly mature project model. It's one that the Métis Nation of Ontario developed with OTEC. I think we're going on 7 years ago. And the reason I choose this one is we've had a lot of time to research the results and track the impacts to businesses and kind of the clients involved over these years. The background is, again, citing these labor market challenges. Way back in 2008, the MNO approached OTEC because in many of the smaller communities, they had pretty significant underemployment. And we recognized ourselves that our tourism operators and businesses in those same communities were starving for talent. So we thought this is a perfect partnership, and we started it with just a simple memorandum of understanding to design labor market programs to link this particular job seeker to the labor market in tourism. Now, from the outset, the MNO engaged their First Nations partners, and it became a great and collaborative model over the years. So after a lot of dialogue with industry, with the communities, and with the Métis Nation, we designed a 10-week model based on the National Occupational Standards. It was important because it helped over this period, we were working with people who might not have experience, and we helped them to make some key decisions in their career exploration. They had to research the job opportunities in those communities, and we launched in Thunder Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, Midland, and North Bay. And we started to introduce them to local businesses. And over the course of that 10 weeks, as they learned, they really identified specific career paths. They became experts in those occupations and started to cross-train one another until they became ambassadors for those occupations before heading out into the field. Some of the things that were really important about this project is that over the course of delivery, it really evolved. From the outset, OTEC and the MNO pursued a capacity building approach. From day one, we were seeking to transition delivery completely to the Métis Nation. So every year that we ran the program, OTEC conducted train-the-trainer workshops and for Métis Nation staff so they could pick up the program in that location until by the end of the program, OTEC had really stepped back, and the relationships with businesses, the training expertise, and the ambassadorship for the program was really entirely coming from the MNO. That's an approach I really like. We've got a big province, and we've got some really unique communities, and it's only those who are living and working in those communities who really know them and can serve them best.
So that transfer of knowledge is not only great for the individuals gaining those skills, but then it's also great for the trainers who you transfer that knowledge to as employment themselves to keep spreading the good word and laying down those foundation. That foundation.
Absolutely. And one of the other key learnings over the course of this project is we set out, we're a standards organization, we're a training organization, and we set out with an assumption that we would be seeking to fill a skills gap amongst the clients, the trainees for employment, both First Nations and Métis in these communities. And through a partnership with Bow Valley College, we were able to conduct detailed essential skills assessments of the participants, and we confirmed, yes, there were skills gaps amongst the population. Coincidentally, and fortunately, OTEC was also working on a national hotel skills and training study at the same time. And what was interesting is we found that despite this group of trainees having these gaps, the gaps were really no different from the actual workforce working in the hospitality industry. We saw those same skills gaps amongst frontline employees in housekeeping and food and beverage service and restaurants and hotels across the country. So it made us scratch our head a bit and ask, is it not just skills then? What else do we need to be providing to these job seekers in these communities to make them successful employees and to help the tourism businesses grow?
Okay, and Adam, just essential skills. Can you give us an example of what some of those essential skills might be?
Sure. These are the universal skills that enable us to learn new tasks and be efficient. It's not necessarily knowledge-based. So document use, for example, enables us to process new information contained in processes and documentation on the job. Communication skills, an essential aspect of everyday communication in the workplace. These are kind of universal standards that Canada and a number of other countries around the world use to determine what people have before education begins. So what we found was, in addition to the hard skills, the technical skills, and the essential skills, was that we really needed to focus on some of the more simple and intangible aspects of the training. Basic life skills, social supports, confidence, getting people, helping people to build social networks. And in the end, it really changed our approach. You could say we got a little bit softer in our approach to the training, but we didn't water down any of the standards or the technical aspects of the training. In fact, it's a very hard course these candidates went through, and we see college students struggling through some of these exams that they were able to succeed with. So in the end, over the course of 6 intakes in 4 communities, 230 students enrolled, and 196 completed the training, 172 participants gained employment, and really importantly, 200 tourism employers, restaurants, hotels, attractions, and destinations were engaged. And this was in mainstream hospitality, but also in First Nations and Aboriginal attractions and operations across Ontario. I mean, the hotel in Little Current took on placements from this program in a fantastic partnership. Finally, it was identified by Industry Canada as one of the key successes that they could track from the federal tourism strategy, and that's a feather in the cap of the program. In addition to this case study project, OTEC's been working with a lot of innovative partners across the province and more recently, across Canada. For example, and I wanted to ask Trina Mather-Simard from Aboriginal Experiences to join me today, but coincidentally, she's hosting 6,000 students at her Ottawa attraction, so she's got her hands full. But one such partner is Aboriginal Experiences out of Ottawa and their Aboriginal Cultural Ambassador Program. That's a fantastic first start in the sector for a lot of First Nations youth, where they picked up some transferable skills for employment in tourism and hospitality, but they also learned, they studied the National Heritage Interpreter program. That's the same program that's used and is actually mandatory across the Parks Canada network. And they were able to learn those principles through Aboriginal Experiences program and thus become ambassadors of their culture when they went out to placements across Canada. Another fantastic example is Seven Generations Educational Institute in Kenora. They work with Shinio Wabatong, and they serve the surrounding First Nations communities. And they've adopted a full suite of national standards-based programming. They've formed articulation partnerships with colleges like Canadore, and they've really tailored the programming to both the learner in their local communities and to specific job opportunities. So, for example, a shoulder industry of tourism and hospitality is the remote camp services industry for mining. So a lot of individuals in that community have been able to learn housekeeping and culinary skills that can be applied to a remote camp services environment.
So, Adam, really what I'm hearing is that partnerships are the key to setting this up. And I think as we have some economic development officers on board and bands that even have their own corporations, this is a wonderful opportunity for them to connect just by utilizing the partnership model.
Absolutely, and just to hammer that point home, Seven Generations, who we've developed a lot of new programming with, has been very open with us and in partnership. We've sought to share the programming they've developed for some of these sub-industries and subsectors with the network. It's really about sharing and building capacity as a whole, rather than holding specific assets to oneself.
Great.
So lots of partnerships. Many more pending that we won't get into. But there certainly is a growing network of organizations that are starting to again use that common currency and come together and share resources.
Yeah. So I would say it's as easy as this. I think it's just a matter of if you have. I know we had one question about apprenticeship and whatnot. If you see an opportunity for capacity building or training or pre-employment and community skills training, just give Adam a quick email. We'll provide that at the end. And there's no doubt that they'll be able to have a solution for you.
So now moving on to employee and workplace training. So this is certainly often where people's minds first go to when they think of workforce development. And in a lot of cases, this is actually pretty easy to attain through our corporate training, through we all conduct compliance training as we need to on a daily basis, but sometimes it's about supplementing our toolkit and starting to, I guess how we've defined it recently is provide professional development outcomes in addition to the workplace learning outcomes, so that we're really starting to build that labor pool and its overall capacity of the sector. I want to give you some examples of some recent projects that we've worked on, specifically in the Aboriginal community. And one of the leaders that we've worked with was really the Manitoulin Hotel and Conference Center. We've worked with lots of big nationally branded hotel chains. But Manitoulin Hotel and Conference Center was really targeting professional development and training before they even opened their doors. They approached us with a plan to ensure that their entire staff complement in housekeeping, food and beverage service, front desk, was all trained and certified before they even opened their doors. And that's a big commitment to make. So we work with them to do that, and we're thrilled when the first Great Spirit Circle Trail conference was held there, and we were able to meet and interact with some of these extremely well-trained individuals. So that's a great example of really taking the bull by the horns. I mean, you're planning a new business, and to just get out on the right foot and invest in your teams. Next set of partnerships that we've been working on, we're in collaboration with both Great Spirit Circle Trail and Aboriginal Experiences. We developed a national certification series. We've been holding it in Little Current. The first series was in May of 2014. We ran the Heritage Interpreter National Certification Program. And I mentioned how Aboriginal Experiences had really created a wonderful program in Ottawa. Well, we partnered with them to bring I guess you could say, an intensive 5-day certification course based on that program to the Manitoulin Sagamore community. And this program was specifically targeting professionals in the industry who had experience under their belt and now wanted to pick up the national standards and put some processes behind their work. It was a huge success, and we had great representation from local attractions, and as a result, we relaunched in March of this year. And at that time, we also launched a food and beverage service certification as well, which was extremely successful. This is a simple model. It was not that difficult to get off the ground. It just took a few key partners to spearhead it and to start marketing through their networks. This was pretty grassroots. I mean, this was marketing through emails, and it's a matter of a collection of businesses and stakeholders saying, we need to do this, but the only way to do it is, to create a critical mass and to get all of us together at once. You can't get this sort of training as an individual. It's just far too expensive, but collectively, it's very manageable.
And I think just with the certification, speaking for myself, I'm certified in a number of occupations. And from the recognition perspective, this is where we're talking about customer service, where, employee retention, when you feel you're worth something and recognized nationally, it's a wonderful feeling. But more importantly, for the employers, it helps them, have those standards and have that consistent service that's going to keep their brand and their business going. So it's a wonderful route to go. It gives you all the skills you need, as well as it gives the employees the recognition they need and deserve.
So I mentioned before that we work with some of the largest corporate chains and branded companies in tourism and hospitality, and that's certainly true. They have been using standards for a long time. They recognize these programs and certifications. but it's always been a challenge to get the opportunities to small and medium-sized business. However, as the networks begin to communicate more readily, they are able to have those economies of scale. And what's really, really cool is when you're able to receive the same kind of professional development in your community, perhaps in Northern Ontario or Southwestern Ontario, that is being used by some of the biggest corporate chains in the world.
Wonderful. And with Aboriginal Tourism Ontario being mobilized this year, is a great opportunity for a fit for you as your community to see how it can play out with OTEC and the ATO and getting a program going in your area.
Now, that said, there's a simple undertaking to plan with your community and bring training opportunities to your network. There's also other ways. I mean, you can build capacity amongst your teams in terms of coaching and essential skills training. This Upskill Essentials to Excel programming is actually the curriculum that we developed in partnership with SRDC out of Ottawa during that 3-year ROI study. So there is both the formal, there's the certification, there's the professional development, and there's building capacity as a business to learn the skills required to develop your team at a more foundational level. So it's a much bigger discussion, and that's why we've been advocating for communities to come together and start to plan needs assessments as a group. And OTEC's been working with a number of communities over the past 6 months to try and plan some of those projects. Why this is really timely, and one of the reasons it's going to start to grow, and we're going to see more communities taking advantage of this, is that, well, the Canada-Ontario Job Grant is now available, and we have started to work with, certainly directly with businesses to offer the training. It's a beautiful opportunity because the fund provides 2/3 of the costs of any training associated with employee professional development. I've got a simple graphic on here. We won't spend too much time with it, but the way it works is that the fund is designed to help people advance. So there's a tiered system of priorities for the fund allocation. If it's a new hire or if it's an individual who's being promoted, then the training falls into Tier 1. If it is an existing employee, and then we're falling into Tier 2, and if it's compliance training based or training that would have been provided anyway, it can fall into Tier 3. But certainly we have a lot of opportunity to have
Adam,
really...
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Are you certain that the Canadian Ontario Job Grant actually applies to First Nations administrative buildings and employees?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yes.
Because we here work at an Employment Ontario site. This Chris Schwano, I know we've talked before. But we've had difficulty in terms of actually having approval through the Canadian Ontario Job Grant. We've been actually told that First Nations administrative buildings and employees do not qualify for the Canadian Ontario Job Grant. Particularly
Employment Ontario offices. It's because the Employment Ontario network is responsible for administering the fund. And so that does put them in a bit of a challenge. You can administer the funding for local businesses outside of the Employment Ontario network, but yes, Employment Ontario offices in particular are not eligible at this time.
So is there a solution in a way of working around?
What I was getting at is even myself, like the Employment Ontario site that we have here in Kettle Point is based on an agreement, obviously, with the MTCU. Mm-hmm. But having said that, those that work at the band office and all the other employees of the First Nation are not eligible to apply to those dollars.
Now, they have recently revised the guidelines, but Chris, I was not under that impression. In fact, I've had discussions with MTCU that told me otherwise. So I might investigate that further and make sure that you're getting the right information.
Excellent. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah. So we have been developing and offering programming across Ontario using this fund. It's been quite successful. There's a bit of administration involved in it, but it's certainly worthwhile. I mentioned that leadership training is underutilized. Well, because of the nature of the assessment criteria, when you are promoting someone from perhaps a frontline role into a leadership role, supervisor, or management role, this is a perfect time to use this fund, because it would then fall into Tier 1. It's associated with an advancement in their employment status. So keep this in mind, and feel free to connect with us with any ideas. I think Mel Orklin might be on the line as well. We've recently been talking about how to develop some operations training with the broader network and using this funding to deliver it. So the final category I want to touch on, and this is a bigger discussion, but I want to put it out there because with Aboriginal Tourism Ontario launching, and with the potential to build a brand for Aboriginal tourism in this province, it starts to open the door to this type of training and this type of brand building. So these are examples of some of the programs that OTEC has been involved in developing. The programming in principle is customized. It's designed to prepare a large group of employees or ambassadors of a region to meet, well, to live the brand that's being communicated out to the market. The first example you see on the top left is Toronto 2015, the Pan Am Games. So OTEC is currently working on phase 2 of our We've Been Expecting You training campaign with the City of Toronto to provide a training program to train volunteers and employees at the Games to serve all of the different tourists that are going to be visiting us this summer, and to make sure that we're all consistent in our messaging regarding Toronto. We've been working with regional tourism organizations. You'll see down below the Ovation program. This is a criteria-based assessment and recognition program where it's working with businesses to assess their readiness. But then once they have studied those criteria, made changes to their businesses, and met the requirements, it's really about marketing and promoting them. So it's both a training program, it's both a capacity building program, and a marketing program. Niagara is similar. But I want to plant this seed because as things move forward, this is a real growing opportunity for the network and for specific communities within it. So key principles, at least from OTEC's perspective, we try and use standards-based training wherever we can. There's credibility in that, there's mobility for the employees who are trained, and there's recognition for the businesses that use it. We've got a strong alignment with the academic sector because it creates opportunities for credit equivalency, and we know that any investment in training and professional development means something to that individual long term. It's modular. We're facilitating cross-referral and partnership opportunities across the network so that programming in Kenora, people could start a program there and finish it in Sagamok, Manitoulin. And finally, it's culturally relevant. I mean, OTEC is a standards organization. We're a training and consulting organization. But it's working through these partnerships where we step back and we let partners like Aboriginal Experiences, Great Spirit Circle Trail, the Métis Nation of Ontario, they come in and they're our subject matter experts, and they integrate the cultural authenticity and the heritage into the training, because they're the holders and the owners of the brand and of the culture. So yeah, with that I will just want to focus on one final comment. We did this strategy years ago, and with every year that passes, the recommendation from the Tourism Workforce Development Strategy of foster an environment of collaboration and coordination, it becomes ever more clear how important this is going to be.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Adam. So just to close out, I think it's really important that we have some questions and an answer period with the group. But just to close out, I think the overall theme that I heard through the presentation was partnerships are key. Building those partnerships from the community at a grassroots level and to organizations like yours or associations that are leading this way, such as Aboriginal Tourism Ontario. So partnerships are absolutely key. The resources are available. You have, I mean, OTEC has been doing this for decades and has the resources there to for operators or for communities to access. And so duplication is something that I've seen people do, hiring a consultant or something like that and going out and redoing all these standards when they already exist and you can customize them. So the resources are there. And with that, Adam, I just think, you know, for OTEC, for what you guys are doing, I'm so happy that you are a guest speaker today, because I think what you're doing for the province of Ontario specifically with the Aboriginal and Indigenous community is a great step forward. So thank you for being here today.
Well, thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.
So with this, I will just go to the, we have to go back to my slide.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to just open up the floor to the group. And really, just with the Q&A after number So just, is there any questions and answers aside from Barry's one that I think we've touched on? Does anybody in the group have any questions? All right. So from the group's perspective, are there specifics that anyone would like to share with us that you're having either challenges or opportunities that you need in your community? What do you think would be helpful for human resources and development and training specific to tourism in your community? What are some of the things that you would like to see? I can't see the chat. Please feel free to speak. It's great to hear from you. No questions? No comments? Anyone have any comments on what some of the needs are in your community? Okay. Great. Oh, looks like we have someone. Okay. Barry did have a question earlier, but Adam's going to follow up with Barry and take care of that. I would just like to say to you that if you already haven't looked at how you can get involved, there is Aboriginal Tourism Ontario right now is launching itself. Now, it's been a lot of time coming, and there's been a lot of work done, and there's been support that has been required. And so that's starting to come to fruition now. And so what's really important is that the communities are heard and they get involved. So if you have the chance, please, by attending today's webinar, that's one way. That was fantastic. There's workshops that are available in regional areas. There's 4 of them. And there's also a survey and questionnaires online that would be really useful in gathering information. This year, in the next 2 months, Aboriginal Tourism Ontario is going to be redoing their strategy that was done 5 years ago. And so hearing from you would be absolutely critical to including what you need for human resources. And that's on the survey. So if you need any information on the survey or the workshops or how you can get involved, you can just contact info@cesclients.com. And certainly you can contact Adam at
amorrison@otec.org.
Okay, and we'll be happy to answer it. And again, here is an opportunity for free advice from either Aboriginal Tourism Ontario or from OTEC to help you meet your needs. And I think that's where we're at for today. And again, thanks so much for coming out, Adam. And if there's any other questions from the attendees before we sign off, we would otherwise thank you for joining us.
I have a question.
Yes, please. And who is it, Gail?
Gail, yes. I'm just curious, will these be available for slides or anything like that, and so that we can show others as well who weren't able to attend the webinar? It's being recorded. Will they be available?
That's a fantastic. Yes, this is going to be available. We're going to post it on the Aboriginal Tourism Ontario site, which will be up soon. But in the meanwhile, I am going to give Margaret will send a link for you that you can actually watch this, and so it'll be there.
Okay.
And if you want to go to the Aboriginal Tourism Ontario Facebook, You will see a link there as well. It'll be available there, and you can touch on it and play it as many times as you like.
Okay, then.
I'm assuming you're going to play this Saturday night around 8 p.m.
Well, of course.
Excellent. Margaret, who's on here, will email everyone that has attended this webinar with that information to make it easier for you.
Okay.
Thanks for the good question. Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you, everyone, for taking the time. We know how busy you are in your communities making things happen, and we hope that this will give you a little bit of edge in helping you accomplish those goals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. You're welcome.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.